Welcome to a Women's Brew, where women talk about beer. Today's episode is super spooktacular as we're joined by S43 Brewery to talk about one of our favourite times of year, pumpkin spice season, y'all. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
I gotta get my pumpkin spice.
That TikTok is actually Tori, in case you haven't seen it. And we are two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great spoopy beer. Come join us.
That's genuinely my bad TikTok. He's like that guy, and he's going, "I gotta get my pumpkin spice."
It literally came up on my feed, and I was like, that was the conversation I had with Tori like half an hour ago, where she was talking to me in all caps about pumpkin spice, and then went, "I've got one." Two seconds later,
and if Emma from Mirakai hears it, like literally, she will like message me when there's like a pumpkin beer, and I'll just get pumpkin spice message, and I know exactly. So Jo's got her lovely pumpkin in the background.
Halloween decorations aren't out yet because you visited and I've been busy,
and I normally put them out when I visited you, so
yeah, that's when I'd put mine out as well. I think I've got time this weekend. They're going to go up this weekend.
So Jo's taken hers out, and I found a pumpkin pecan waffle candle, and it's got a pumpkin on it, and it's probably one of the best smelling candles I've ever had in my life. But I haven't lit it, but I got it out because it's pumpkin spice. So yeah, I can't put them out this weekend. I'm away, unfortunately. But they will be done soon, and maybe next time I'll throw a pumpkin in. But yeah, why are we all crazy about pumpkins, Jo?
Well, I mean, because pumpkin spice is amazing, and we're basic. We're basic, and I don't care about it.
Yeah, basic.
And I don't care. I don't care. But we're going to talk to S43 about their pumpkin beer.
Very excited. Yeah, we're going to cut to the interview of that, but hopefully you enjoy it. I know we did an episode last year about pumpkin spice, and this was and their beer last year was the one that we drank. So we will see what we're drinking in a moment this year, and hopefully you enjoy it. So to start, do you want to introduce yourself, where you're from, and give a little bit high level overview about the brewery?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Alex Rattray. I'm not originally from the UK, as you've probably guessed. Yes, I'm originally from Texas. Every time I do these, I always say that I should put on a really thick Texas accent just at the beginning and then change. But so my wife and I have been living here in the UK for the last 3 years. So I came over from Texas to kind of head up a big change at S43 Brewery, which we were known as Sonnet 43 Brewery a few years ago. Kind of did some rebranding and some retooling, and so now we're known as S43 Brewery. So I have been living in rural, kind of near Durham area for the last 3 years, where I pass more sheep, I think, than people on my way to work, which is quite different than where I came from. But we really love it.
No, that's really cool. So did you see, just out of sheer curiosity, did you see like a job posting for the brewery and then went, yeah, I'd do that? Or were you approached, or how did it work?
Yeah, no, basically, so kind of a shortened version of the longer story, but my wife and I came over here in 2016 for a holiday, just for a nice long holiday. We really kind of fell in love with it. I had some connections here already, just with some like family friends. And I was kind of looking to do something a bit different. I kind of worked my way to the point in the brewery that I was working at in San Antonio where I felt like there wasn't really anywhere else for me to go. And so we were kind of looking to move somewhere potentially anyway. And we just thought, well, maybe we should try to move to the UK. So I was just like trolling job boards all the time, and found job posting that seemed like it was really kind of what I was looking for, which was somewhere that was already doing cask beer, kind of more traditional English stuff, but wanted to get into doing a lot more of the modern American stuff, which was what I was already doing back in the States. And so I just felt like it was like a really cool kind of synergy between those two. And it was a really long process, but I did some Skype interviews with the owner and the manager, and we did all the visa paperwork stuff. And then about 6 months later, we were here.
That's incredibly cool. Yeah, no, that's really cool to just be like, yeah, you happen to, like, you were over here and then you were like, cool, that aligns with what I want. That is pretty cool to get to move jobs and do something equally as cool as what you were doing back in the US. But we basically, Joe and I really wanted you to come on. We were like, can someone please come to talk to us for a bit? That's come out. That is your collaboration with Brew York, and it is the Imperial Pumpkin Spice Latte Stout that you put out. So I had originally seen the collaboration you did last year with Brew York, which was the one that Joe has, because if anyone's watching the video, I massively ballsed up, and when I went to go visit her, I didn't take the can that was meant for her. Apologies, Joe. But great, now she gets to demonstrate last year's. And I absolutely love that. Like, it was so good. And I don't know if you feel this way. So I'm also from the US, and I really struggle to find decent pumpkin and pumpkin spiced beers over here. And that was like, I'm from New England. And so for me, pumpkin and like pumpkin spice beers and all that is like, that's my jam. And I really struggled to find good ones over here. So when I had your beer last year, I was like, oh my God, this actually tastes like pumpkin spice. I was so happy. Was that the first year that you guys actually did a pumpkin beer, or is the first one I noticed, but
so you're spot on. It was the first one we did. So I think like you, being from the States, like pumpkin beers, they're just like what you do in the autumn. So when I came over after a while, I didn't notice. I was like, wow, nobody does pumpkin beers. That's kind of weird. And I will say, I don't typically like the kind of the pumpkin ales. I like pumpkin dark beers. A lot of the just kind of the, I don't know, they just usually bill them as like a pumpkin ale, and it's usually like a 5 to 7% kind of a thing. I usually don't go for those, but a lot of the higher ABV darker pumpkin beers I really enjoy. And so it was something I'd been talking about, and they were a little bit iffy, like, oh, I don't know if we should do this or not.
Because we just don't do it over here. Like, I'm trying to think of the first time, because I'm an anomaly because I spent quite a lot of time working in America. And that's where I started my love of beer. So pumpkin beer and, pumpkin spice latte and all of that came to me quite easily. But like, I think the first time I ever ate pumpkin was probably a pumpkin pie when I went to my first Thanksgiving in 2008, because we don't eat pumpkin over here. Like, the only
I don't think I've seen a
see,
pumpkin pie here at all. Yeah.
no, the only pumpkins you see over here like are the big ones that you carve, and they're not necessarily that good for eating because they're grown so big. Like, the nice little sweet ones that are really good for making things with, you don't see them very often. It makes me sad because I love anything pumpkin now. I was deprived in my life.
But I ran into that issue with like trying to find the pumpkins. Because I'd done a few pumpkin beers back at the brewery I worked with in San Antonio. And so typically, we'd buy some pumpkins and we'd roast them or whatever.
Yep.
I could not find any pumpkins anywhere. So that was really tricky. So we ended up using just canned pumpkin because that was literally the only thing I could get. And even that, I think it was actually like an American brand that I found on Amazon, I think. I think also because we were trying to brew it, we wanted to get it out as early in October as possible. So I've now started seeing a few pumpkins popping up in some grocery stores, but by then it's too late to brew it. We need it in like kind of August, September time. So that was the first hurdle was trying to find the pumpkin to begin with.
Yeah, no, it's really appreciated that you guys put it out early in October, because like I like to get it as soon as possible, because there's nothing worse than when I'm looking at my friends back in the US and they're like post all these photos of like, oh, this beer's out now and look at this pumpkin beer, and I get really sad. And then I found last year for the first time there was a lot more, because as you like how you said you wanted to make one, but they were a bit iffy about it. Every brewery that I've spoken to that's like, are you guys going to put like a pumpkin spice beer out? Everyone's like, no. Like, the majority of them are like, that's a really funny joke. No. But for some reason last year there was like this influx of them, but they all seemed to come like towards the end of the month. And I was like, but I want them before Halloween. I want to have like the build up to Halloween. So I feel like you guys just released it at such a perfect time that I was just like, yes, this is great.
It's kind of like with Christmas beers too. Just from like a sales perspective, you don't want to be trying to sell Christmas beers like after New Year's. They've kind of lost their luster. So the earlier you can get them out, the better. And it just kind of worked out with our canning dates, where we had a canning date that was going to be right at the end of September. And we hadn't necessarily even decided to do a second one this year. I mean, the one we did last year went over super well, but we hadn't necessarily thought of it. And then I was just kind of doing some forecasting and looking in canning dates, and we had talked about, we talked to Brew York about maybe kind of doing an annual thing, because the last one had gone over really well. And so don't hold us to it, but we will probably, I think there's enough demand where we'll probably do some kind of iteration of this every year with them. It's just kind of a fun thing to do with them. So
nice. Very excited to hear that. I won't hold you to it, but I'll be very sad if it doesn't happen, because I'll be like, come on, it's the one guarantee that I have in life. Before I ask any more questions, or Joe asks any more questions, should we crack open the beer? Because I really want it. I feel like I've been so patient, and I just really want to have it.
I've got to be even more patient.
I know. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm just loving the smell already.
And it definitely helps if you pull it out of the fridge a little bit before you drink it. I think giving it 5 to 10 minutes to warm up. I mean, you could do it once you poured it too, but I feel like the spices and stuff definitely come out the more it warms up.
I was going to say, what's your recommended time for how long you would? So, like for example, when we spoke to Wild Weather when we did Cephalopod, we sort of said how long roughly should we take it out of the fridge for? Because I tend to go for like half hour to an hour, and they actually said, "Oh, put it in the fridge for an hour." And I know everyone's kind of different. Some people have a take it out rule, some people have a put it in rule. I took this out about 45 minutes maybe ahead of this, but how long would you recommend for people to sort of do that?
It depends. I mean, I always am an advocate of storing your beers cold and keeping them in the fridge. It's just with a few exceptions, it's almost always going to be better for the beer. It just help the flavor profile hold up. So I would be a take them out of the fridge guy, I guess. But yeah, I think and I guess it depends on how quick you drink it. I tend to be kind of a slow drinker, so I don't mind pulling one out of the fridge like 10 minutes before I'm going to drink it, because I know it's going to sit there in my glass for, probably 20, 30 minutes. And I think also if you pull it out of the fridge, maybe 10, 15 minutes, you'll get to kind of experience the flavor when it's a little bit colder, and then as it warms up. So if you pull it out maybe a little bit earlier, you're only going to get it when it's warm, which albeit is probably the better temperature, but I also like just kind of being able to taste the difference as it warms up. So
yeah, that development of flavors is really that's fun. I like doing that.
I was gonna say, to be fair, I usually quite like doing that as well, because it's just you like something I find like nuttiness, like a lot of beers that have nuttiness to it. When it's cold, you don't necessarily get as like much depth in it, and then as it warms up, you just start to taste like the peanut taste more and more, and it's just so interesting to see how it develops. So yeah, I've definitely done that myself. This is really nice. I'm just holding it back because I just feel really bad that I've screwed Joe over, but it is really good. Who's
one is still good too.
I was gonna say, has it held up?
Yeah,
it held up when I had it a few months ago.
The spices are really there, and there's like that kind of sweet pumpkin now. I think the coffee's dulled down.
Coffee, I would imagine, is probably
the coffee's gone, but the rest of it, the spices it's really lovely.
Love good pumpkin.
I'm still enjoying it. It's fine.
I can't wait to see your reaction when I bring you the new one. Whose idea was it to do the one last year? Was it like S43's? Was it Brew York? Was it just like a meeting of the minds in the middle somewhere?
Yeah, so it was just my idea. I'd been wanting to do one for a while, and we met Brew York at a beer festival back like in 2019. And it was kind of one of those things, we were chatting, we're like, oh yeah, we'll do a collab together, we'll do a beer together, and then it just just never happened. And so I was kind of thinking about doing this idea, and then collabs are a really good opportunity to kind of dabble in some styles that are a bit trickier, just because you have, if it's a collab, you have a bit more to sell with it, and you can get people a bit more excited. And also you're hopefully appealing to both breweries fans, so you just have a wider base to sell. So typically when we do collabs, we like to do stuff that's a little bit more out there, just because it's a good opportunity to be able to do it. So and I knew Lee likes to do, so Lee's the main brewer at Brew York. I knew he liked to do kind of some weird stuff. So I just kind of pitched him an idea, and funny enough, he was always kind of anti pumpkin beers, but then a guy from the States had brought him over a beer called Pumpkinator, which you guys are probably familiar with. Although it doesn't really get outside of Texas much, but there's a brewery in Texas called St. Arnold, and they've been doing this annual pumpkin beer called Pumpkinator, and it's an Imperial pumpkin stout. And they do it every year, different iterations, and then they do barrel aged versions of it every year, and it's really, really good. And so somebody had brought over Lee a few years back, and so every year he gets this guy to bring him a couple of bottles of this Pumpkinator. So it helps. So he was already a fan, and I had said, because I had told him in the email originally, I didn't know that, and I was like, oh, there's this beer called Pumpkinator, because I was kind of assuming he wasn't going to like pumpkin beers, and I was like, look, there's this really cool beer, it's actually a really good beer, it's not just like a gimmick thing. So he already knew about it, so he was on board, right from the get-go. So but funny enough, when we did it last year, neither one of us were actually there, so we come up with a recipe and everything, and then that was when they started putting everybody back into tiers, and because we're in different counties, so Lee wasn't supposed to be able to travel up, and then my wife and I had our daughter a week early. She came a week early, basically the day before we were supposed to do this collab. So even I wasn't there because we were in the hospital. So so the guys at the rest of the crew at back at our brewery brewed it. But it was just kind of a weird thing that neither one of us are actually there for the specific brew day.
So when it came to like drafting that recipe up, was it like completely split? Like, did you guys completely do a 50-50 agreement on everything? Or was it kind of like you draft it and send it back and then it goes back and forth?
Yeah. So I think, I don't know how everybody does it, but typically when we do a collab, like at our place, I'll come up with a recipe and then I'll send it to him and be like, hey, here's some ideas. We'll chat about some ideas kind of back and forth, and I'll put a recipe together, because obviously it's going to be different depending on what kit you're working on, everything. And then we'll just kind of go back and forth and be like, maybe we should add a little bit more of this, take some of that away. Have you thought about this kind of thing? So I'm pretty sure that's how it worked out too, is we had kind of talked about flavor wise, where we wanted to go, where we wanted to stay away from. We talked about like the different spices that we want to use. We talked about different coffee methods and things. And like Lee had quite a bit of feedback about doing the spices, because I hadn't done a ton of spice beers. So I kind of was asking him some techniques, like what do you guys typically do? And then just put like a base recipe together until we kind of got it where we liked it. And then the guys brewed it, and then I was doing all of it's really tricky with these kinds of beers, because it's really easy to go over the top with any one ingredient. So when it came to the spices, like basically I'm blending them in and then just kind of tasting it as we do it. So I'll put some in, kind of recirculate it in the beer, then taste it, and then just keep going until we feel like it's kind of where it needs to be. And then we usually go a little higher than we think it needs to be, because it tends to, the spices we use, ground up spices, and they will kind of settle out to the bottom of the beer eventually. So you can taste it when you first put it in, you're like, oh, this is like super vibrant. And then the day later, a lot of it's kind of dropped out. And so we kind of over spice it, knowing that it's going to drop back down again. So
how much do you tend to like over spice it? Is it kind of like, do you have to do kind of like, this is where I want it to be, so I double that, or do you not go as far as kind of doubling it?
No, I don't go as far as doubling. So I tend to be a more like subtle spice guy. So I don't want it to just like smack me in the face with it. So basically, once it gets to a level where I think it's too much and I wouldn't drink it, then that's probably where it needs to be.
That's fair.
So
that's smart.
that's usually where so it's usually maybe going about 20%, 25% above where we need to be. And it's tricky. Like some spices, obviously, it's like cinnamon. You can go a lot more with cinnamon, but if you go like with ginger or allspice, it's really intense. So like the ratio is it's a lot more cinnamon than anything. We also use nutmeg, ginger, allspice, and some clove. But the clove is like maybe 2% of the whole thing, but if it's not there, it's noticeable. It's not there, but it's really easy to do too much clove.
Oh yeah.
That's quite interesting. That like it's that if you take it away completely, you'll notice it's not there, but you overdo it a bit, and then it's gone up. That's such a delicate balance game. It sounds like.
It is, and it's not very scientific. It's just very trial and error. Unfortunately, I wish it was a lot more scientific, but at least the way that we do it on kind of a smaller scale is literally just relying on taste buds to see kind of where it's at.
That's how I do it when I homebrew.
There you go.
I do a tincture, and then I add that in just before bottling, and I'll just add a bit and taste it. Like, no, it needs a bit more. Yeah, that's it. That's right. That's what I want. Yeah. Art and science, that's what brewing is.
Yeah, no, that's I've got a controversial question I need to know, just because obviously you being from the US as well, you'll have come across this. I feel like a lot of people don't come across it here, except out like DGM posts and stuff like that. Cinnamon sugar rims. What's your take on cinnamon sugar rims with pumpkin beers? It's a controversial take.
Yeah, I would say, like most things, they have their time and place, which would probably not be where I am. But I don't judge people if you want to do the cinnamon rim, you know.
I just felt like it would be a miss if I didn't ask. If I didn't ask the only other person that has probably seen a cinnamon sugar rim in person.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I feel like in general, the US is just like, you know, they just tend to take stuff too far in a lot of things. So there's all kinds of weird stuff that people do with beers in the US at you know, bars where, you know, you have like the Randall machines that they'll use and be putting Oreo cookies through them and all kinds of crazy stuff. So, you know, time and place, I'm all for it.
I think there's many things that I've seen in photos from the people I know in the US. Those type of things were not things. I have seen the cinnamon sugar in person, but doing like Oreos and stuff like that, I don't think I've ever seen people do that in person.
Oh,
That's so interesting.
We at the brewery I worked at, we had a brew pub location, so it was like a bar, restaurant kind of thing, and we had a small brewery there. And one year we served beer out of a pumpkin. So we just hollowed out a big pumpkin, poured the beer in the night, and then put a plastic tap into it. And I don't think it like did anything to the flavor, but people loved it. So
it's a nice gimmick, isn't it? Yeah,
it looks great. I've always wanted to drink beer out of pumpkin like that.
Yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it's okay, I think, to just do things for a bit.
It is, yeah. Beer's been around a long time. It will survive all the weird stuff that we do to it. So.
Yeah, so you mentioned about obviously finding pumpkins. You kind of had to go with that canned pumpkin just to get it out in time and all that, and that was one of the challenges you had. Were there any other really big challenges that you had either between last year or this year with the actual bring, obviously COVID aside and not being able to be in the same place, that kind of thing? What kind of other challenges were there, and how did you kind of get over those challenges?
So the day that we were to brew the beer, so Lee came up and then he brought one of his brewers up with us. So it was him and her, and our pallet of malt was supposed to get there. So we're really small, so we don't have much storage space at all. So we pretty much have to order our pallet of malt maybe a day or two before we're going to brew it. So we'd gotten it delayed already. It's supposed to have been there the day before, and then the shipping company said, "Oh, okay, don't worry, it'll be there tomorrow, but it'll be there before 9." And it just kept getting delayed. We were trying to get somebody on the phone. So, you know, I felt terrible because I've got Lee and Lilith up, and we're just sitting in the office drinking coffee and, you know, just wasting their day. I don't think they minded too much because Lee was doing some emails. And at one point we just thought, we're like, well, should we just knock off and just go to the pub and we're just not going to brew this today. So we finally got a hold of the company and they're like, oh no, it's not coming until this afternoon. So it's the distribution center is not too far from it. It's about 20 minutes. So we're like, fine, well, we'll go drive down and we'll just pull the bags off the pallet that we need and then they can redeliver it. But of course, like the bags we needed were at the bottom of the pallet. So we're in this like warehouse distribution area outside, just trying to dismantle this pallet throw it in the van. And so yeah, so we didn't get mashed in until like 3.5 hours late, I think, than
Oh,
usual.
God.
So that was not the best way to start things. So,
Oh,
but we got it done.
That at least it makes for an interesting story though, like a good
Yeah.
like you had to go and dig. It was like you had to work extra hard so that the payoff felt even better in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, we kept joking like this collab is cursed. Like no matter what, we finally get both of us in person, and then the malt doesn't turn up, and yeah. So
next year they'll be like, "There's a big pumpkin shortage" or something like that. But I don't
I'm
want that to happen.
scared
I don't
about-
want that to happen.
I'm scared about what might happen next year. So
It seems like it's up in the ante every year. That's not good. Fingers crossed, because yeah, this is honestly sipping away on this, and it is just really nice. Like you really get like the spices are so perfectly balanced. It's just not. It's not too over the top in your face, but it's very noticeable. And what I always find that, I don't know, Joe, if you'd agree or not, but the pumpkin spice beers that we've all had over here, it always feels like it's either missing the spice or the spice isn't done the right way. There's only like a handful that I've had where I've gone, yeah, I can taste that. It tastes about right. And I think that impacts the flavor. And I do kind of wonder if that's maybe why more people don't like them, because they've never had them in the proper way that we have them in the US. But I feel like you've done like a brilliant job of just like balancing it out so perfectly.
it's tricky. I mean, I think it's one of those beers that we just know from the get-go, like we're not going to please everybody with it, because there'll always be people. If you go and look at Untapped, there's maybe like 40 or 50 check-ins on this so far, and there's already a few people that are like, oh, I want more spice, there's not enough spice, this is weak, like I want to be smacked in the face with spice, which I totally get. I'm not in that camp, and I feel like we could brew a beer like that, and then we get just as many people saying, oh, all you can taste is cinnamon.
Too much spice.
This is,
yeah,
it's like cinnamon challenge in a can, and nobody wants that. So I think like my approach to doing, like, I really enjoy brewing like kind of different fun beers like this. My approach to it is always like, ultimately I want it to be a good beer and then have these other elements to it. I don't want it to just be liquefied sugar and spice, because like you don't need a beer for that. You could just make a soda or a coffee or whatever. You don't, it's silly to go through the whole process of mashing and fermenting and doing all this stuff. But if you just literally want like a sugary spicy mess, you could just make that. So I think our goal with it is like, we want it to be just a good solid stout that obviously is expressing a lot of other flavors like the coffee and the spice, and as much as possible we want to get all of those in there without anyone dominating. So we use two different kinds of coffee in this. We use whole bean and cold brew, because last year we did something different where we just used all cold brew, which I'd never done before, and it was really nice fresh. But I think as you are tasting by now, Joanna, it's like it's really died off, and we even noticed that after like maybe 6 weeks in the can, because the cold brew was really nice, but it's very smooth, and it was almost like it just kind of completely blended in with the rest of the stout flavors. But I really like the flavor profile of it. So this year we tried to do like a 50-50 mix of using beans and the cold brew. So you'd still get that like smoothness, but you get a bit more intensity out of the bean. So I think there's a lot more coffee prevalence in this, which again, maybe some people wouldn't like as much, but I really like coffee. And it is a pumpkin spice latte stout. So it should have a good level of coffee, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I think if I saw something that was pumpkin spice latte and it just didn't have the latte in it, I'd feel a bit like, I mean, your label as well. I mean, for anyone that's watching the video, it's like and the one from last year as well. It's effectively got that like Starbucksy vibe to it. You want it to be coffee like. So if it's not, you just kind of feel like, oh, that's a bit sad. But you definitely get the roastiness in it, which is what from this one. And it's really nice. And I know that when I had the one last year, it definitely, I think, Joe, you had it when it was like fresher as well. And you definitely got that nice balance as well.
Yeah, definitely. I love a coffee beer anyway, though. So
me too.
All about that.
What made you guys decide to go like Impy this time? Were you just like, we're going to turn it up a bit?
Yeah, I think that was kind of the thinking, is like, we'd done that one last year, and we thought, well, let's just do, we liked a lot of the elements of it. We still wanted to keep almost everything the same, but it was basically like, well, what can we do that's different? And so obviously taking it up ABV wise was kind of the natural choice. And people in general really like Imperial stouts. So nobody really usually people don't complain too much about it. And I think also while we enjoyed last year's, we did think like the body could have used, it was really easy to drink, I think, last year's, but I tend to like bigger bodied stouts. And so I think I was wanting like a little bit more sustenance to it. So again, obviously taking it up. I mean, it's not anything crazy ABV wise. We didn't shoot for like 12 or 13% or anything. So maybe we'll do that next year. But and then we did also set aside some to age in a barrel this year. So we're hoping maybe this time or next year that'll be ready, and we could maybe release the newer version as well as the 2021 bottled barrel aged version. So that might be cool.
I'm like so into that idea. Like
all
you have to do is say, can we just put a down payment down on that? That is.
We pre-order that.
Yeah, and there's only one barrel, so there won't be that many bottles either.
Yeah, I will be on that. Like immediately, like I was waiting this year for everyone to announce the pumpkin beers, and then I got tagged in your post when I think you first put like a hint out by Emma from Mirakai, because she knows that I like my pumpkin spice, so she tagged me in it, and I was like, oh my god. So I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to buy it again. So I'm on the lookout when it even starts to come close to October for any pumpkin spice beers. So I'll be on that so quick if you bottle that. If you do barrel aged pumpkin spice, I'll be super into that. Have you ever had like Shipyard, Joe? You probably wouldn't have had it, but Shipyard in the US, they did. So obviously they do the normal like Shipyard pumpkin head, but they had pumpkin head, and it was like a barrel aged Imperial. I think it was a pumpkin porter.
Okay.
And it is incredible. It reminds me of what you were saying about the other one that came that you were talking about earlier, where it was that barrel aged, like just really nicely done dark pumpkin beer. But that's brilliant.
There's another one in this States called Warlock. I'm trying to remember. It's a brewery up in the north that does it, but they do like a more traditional pumpkin beer. Then they do one called Warlock, which is like an Imperial stout version of that. I think it's around 10%. Yeah, Southern Tier. There you go.
I think I've had that.
Pumpkin is my absolute favorite.
Yes, pumpkin. That's the other one. Yeah.
Pumpkin. Yeah, I love pumpkin.
I was going to say definitely had pumpkin.
Warlock, but yeah, that's my favorite one ever.
If you get a chance to try Warlock, I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
Definitely gonna have to add that to the list of add that to the list of things to try to get my family to pick up for me.
I mean,
there's people that like set their calendar to the release of pumpkin and Warlock. People go absolutely nuts for it.
I imagine. I think I just happened upon a pumpkin, not by mistake. So it wasn't by mistake. I was looking for it, but I happened to get really lucky and managed to get my hands on one, because I know that. I mean, even the ones that are more common, they tend to go so quickly. It's like when you get Sam Adams Oktoberfest, like the second that comes out in the US, it's gone. Like it, even when it's brewed on a larger scale, it's just gone so quickly. So yeah, no, I can totally imagine people setting reminders and queuing up to get it even. But yeah, I've got a question that I'm actually quite curious about when it comes to like the naming conventions of your beers. Do you pick the name of your beer before you brew the beer, or is the other way around, or is it just depends on the beer?
Certainly depends. I mean, typically we have to pick it before we brew it, just because of timing schedule to get the design done, then get it off to the printers, and then get it onto the label, onto the can itself. So yeah, typically. We try to work about 3 months ahead of time. So we've got like a whiteboard in the office that's got our canning dates for the next 3 months. And then it's got basically what we're brewing. And then I wish it was more organized, but it's basically, we'll look at the board and be like, oh, okay, we've got this beer coming up. Like, what should we call it? That's how a lot of the beers get named. Also, sometimes someone will just say something and we're like, oh, that's a great beer name. We'll write it on so we have like a board list of just random beer names, beer name ideas. And then sometimes it's just like a really, we know we're going to brew this style and we're like, oh, this is like a perfect name for that style. So it tends to be fairly organic. For these pumpkin beers, so Lee named both of these because we had been exchanging emails and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, I've got the perfect name. It's going to be Pumpkin Dark Side," because it's like a little bit of the Family Guy Star Wars thing.
Yeah,
it was.
And then
I was just like, that is the best name.
And then there was another name we were talking about doing instead of Pumpkin and Pumpkin Imperial. There was another one we were talking about, and it was going to be. Oh, we were talking about maybe the Pumpkin Strikes Back. That was the other idea.
Yes,
I would have been brilliant. Yeah,
amazing.
Pumpkin Strikes
So-
Back.
Yeah.
I think you got to name one of them Cinnamon Challenge, and you just need to do like a cinnamon horchata beer or something. Do like a cinnamon horchata, because the only time I've ever had a cinnamon horchata beer was in the US, and it was amazing.
It is really nice.
You need to do something like that, and then you can call it Cinnamon Challenge, and then just see the people that are complaining that there's not enough cinnamon in this can do the Cinnamon Challenge and see how they feel about
we can
it.
maybe supply like a cinnamon packet on the side of the can for people to do.
Top it up.
But then also be like, we don't recommend you do this. But
Yes,
if you want to do, but if
We'll have
you
a
want to do
disclaimer on
this,
there. Yeah. Horchata beers are delicious. I do. See, the problem is, I think if we did one, no one would know what it was.
I would.
So-
I have been like, so like that's pumpkin spice beers, and then like horchata beers or cinnamon, specifically like cinnamon horchata beers. Like I have been waiting for somebody to do something like that over here. Now you can kind of get pumpkin spice beers, which is great, but I find that there's some flavor profiles like a cinnamon horchata or just a horchata in general that you just, like you said, people don't know what it is. They don't even think to make it, and they'd probably hear it and go, oh, that doesn't sound nice at all, but when you taste it, it is absolutely beautiful. What kind of stuff, like in the US, what kind of stuff were you brewing that maybe people over here haven't brewed that you would be interested to see being brewed over here?
That's a good question. I think we did quite a lot of experimental lagers, or just kind of like different lagers. So we did a lot of different like dry hopped lagers. We would do some lagers with some like different additives. Like I remember we did like a latte lager one time that had like coffee beans and some vanilla in it. It was like really interesting. Like it's not something I'd want to drink all the time by any means, but again, in Texas it's so hot all the time. So kind of lower ABV beers and obviously lagers, they're really nice to drink a lot of year round because it's just hot all the time. And we did a fair amount of, there wouldn't be anything like people wouldn't know of here, but we did a lot of Belgian stuff, but again with like some different variations. So we did like some like Belgian stouts. So, we take kind of like an Imperial stout recipe and then brew it with a Belgian yeast. So you get a lot more esters and kind of fruity profile and really dry. And also Mexican stouts was something we did quite a bit of. So in San Antonio, obviously there's like huge Latin population. So kind of Mexican hot chocolate stouts. So that had like chilies in it. So you had like cinnamon and stuff as well, but then you had some like actual heat from chilies in there as well. So that was something that we did quite a bit of that I really enjoyed. I think we could do something like that here. It would just, time and place, I think.
That's it. I think I've seen it I've seen it come up a few times around. I think the most recent one was Unbarred and Siren did a collab for the Unbarred birthday, and it was, I think, like a Mexican hot chocolate.
Yes.
But you don't see it that often, and I think it's because that style can be quite hit or miss. So sometimes people don't want to necessarily take the risk because it might not pay off. But when it's done right, it's really nice. But yeah, no, I'm really kind of sad now that you told me that there's a potential that somewhere out there's like a coffee lager, because I love iced coffees. I like beer. If I can get beer in an iced coffee in a beer, I'd be very happy. And the fact that sounded very unique and interesting. I need somebody in this country to brew that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good description. It was unique and interesting.
Even just to try once.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing. You have a pint of it and you're like, I enjoyed that, and now I'm ready to not have any more for a while.
I am done.
Yeah, I am moving on now. I am good. I am satisfied.
Yeah.
Of curiosity, how did you get the name Happy Little Accidents? Because obviously that's a Bob Ross reference. I bought that strictly because I've got the Bob Ross board game called Happy Little Accidents. And I was like, I need this to go.
Wow.
There is absolutely a board game. There's 2 Bob Ross board games and I have them both. So I had to buy that to drink while I play that game. Who named that beer? I'm very curious.
So yeah, it was one of the other guys in the office. I think it was JT, our sales guy. So that was that was one of those where it was. So there's probably too much detail that you need, but so typically when we're buying hops, we have to buy like a decent amount at one time. And so, there'll be like 4 bags of hops in one box. And so like I might need 2 or 3 of the bags for a particular beer. And then invariably there's a bag left over that just gets stuck in the back of the cold store. And they start like slowly building up and building up. And then it'll just get to a point, it's like, oh crap, I really need to like start using this stuff. So we kind of had the idea to do like a kitchen sink IPA. And so I think it had like 8 or 9 different hops in it. And it was literally just, well, I've got 2 bags of this and a bag of this, and let this. I'd never done this hop combination. This sounds cool, so let's do it. And so I think it was JT's idea to be like, oh, it'll be like a happy little accident, And then they did a picture of It's very disturbing, but they photoshopped my face onto Bob Ross's head for one of the Instagram posts. So yeah, just continued on that theme.
That is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I ordered one of those because I was like, I need it for when I play my Bob Ross game, because it's genuinely great. And like I can't see the name of a Bob Ross beer, whether it was meant to be that or not. And I was like, I need to have it because it's Bob Ross.
Yes, it was definitely a Bob Ross driver, because I think we were talking about it and I was like, well, I could do this. I was like, but it could be terrible. Like I don't know. And I think JT was like, oh no, it won't be terrible. It'll just be a happy little accident. Like
I never realized how many people in this country knew who Bob Ross was. Like I didn't think any of them did. And I shared a photo that I took. I've got the beer with me because then I'll just show it off to the camera. I took a photo of this with the board game and I sent it in my work group chat, because my work, we are a community of people that like to play board games. And I sent that. And I didn't give any context to it. I just went, these go together. It's perfect. And the response I got was, oh my God, I love Bob Ross, from so many people. And I went, I didn't realize that there were so many people that knew and loved Bob Ross. It was like, this is brilliant.
I think I'm a bit surprised about that as well. I guess you sometimes just assume that something like that is not going to be exported to another country. So
100%. That's why I was like, oh wow, people know who Bob Ross is. This is amazing. But yeah. So I got this glass from yourselves that goes along with this beer.
Yes.
I bought it because I was like, I really love the artwork on it. If you're watching the video, you can see it's like a skull guy in a little floaty on a river, and it's called Hazy River Dank IPA. How do you guys go about sort of like collaborating to get glassware done? So like, did you go, we like this artwork, so we're going to get a glass done, or was it sort of like you knew you were going to do it from the start?
Yeah, so I think so the glass and the can are both designed by the Craft Diaries. So if you follow him on Instagram, which I think it seems like every single beer drinker in the UK owns one of his glasses, which if you don't, you probably should, because he does really cool stuff. So we followed him on Instagram and stuff. And then I think one of our guys had just like commented on one of his glasses or something. We had already ordered some of his stuff, and I think he had just been like, oh yeah, I'd love to do some with you guys. And they're like, yeah, that'd be fun. And then I think, a month or 2 later, we're like, oh, that should be really cool. Like, we'd love to see. We never had really like a guest designer do a glass or do a can. And then they actually so he worked with one of our other sales guys, Sam, and like the amount of work that went into that design was really crazy, because they'd been working on it for like months and months and months, and he would send over like little sketches all the time. And I think that guy's name is David, maybe, from Craft Diaries. Maybe it's not David, but
you never tend to know people's, like, I feel like on Instagram they're just like, oh hi, like people have come up to us when we've met people at like festivals and stuff, and they'll be like, hi, I'm for some reason, I'm sorry, quinoa and squats is the first that comes to my mind. She's hi, quinoa and squats, and you're just like,
quads and quinoa.
Quads and quinoa, that's what it is. Knew it was a workout in quinoa. and it's like, you're like, oh hi, but if someone came up to you and went, oh hi, my name is so and so, you'd be like, oh yeah. Just go blank.
Yeah.
So
so I'll just call him the
handles. Craft Diaries guy.
Craft Diaries guy. That's what we'll call him. So if he's out here there listening. But
Oh.
yeah, so they did a bunch of work like back and forth with it. And then so the more we started getting into it, it's like, oh, well, we should do like a glassware. We hadn't really done much glassware before. We're like, well, we need to do a glass. It'd be really cool to be able to release them, you know, in tandem with the beer and the glass, because we really like the design. It'd be like, oh, it's a shame to just have it on a can. So it'll be immortalized in glass. And so yeah, that's kind of how that came about. And yeah, we just worked on it with them for a really long time. And we started, you know, we kind of talked to him like, what kind of style do you think, you know, would be of interest? And we'd done quite a few dank IPAs, and just with kind of some of the artwork, we're like, oh, I think this would fit really well with kind of the design that he was coming up with. So if you see the can, like he's incorporated a bunch of our previous can designs kind of floating around.
I saw Taco Cat on it. Taco Cat
yeah.
over there.
So it's one of those, like, the more you look at it, you're like, oh, there's
funny.
Lots of little hidden things, like
the one you can't talk about is over there.
Some of our more memorable ones. So yeah, it was really fun. It's really fun to work with him. And yeah, I hope we get to do it again. He's a super nice guy, and he's really talented. And I think he did a really good job.
Yeah, no, to be honest, yeah, like I went to go put in the order just for some cans. I was like, I'll buy some cans, it'd be really good. Was skimming through and saw that, and I was like, I can't see something that looks that cool and not buy it. So and I went, and I can't just buy the glass, I'm gonna have to get the beer to go with it. So I ended up getting the set, because I was like, I can't have one without the other, and I can't not have it, because it was, yeah, I think the artwork is really, really cool on that. So well done.
And it looks really cool with the beer in the glass, or any other kind of hazy IPA in the glass. It looks really cool, I think.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Joe, any other questions? Because I think I asked literally all the questions I had.
No, because I was going to ask you about adding pumpkin, but you said you did it from cans.
Yes, into the boil at the very end of the boil.
At the end of the boil. Yeah, that's when I had my pumpkin.
Yeah.
When I do pumpkin. Did you do it any different way when you were potentially doing them in the US?
So we had done so typically we've tried it like in the mash as well, and that works okay. But yeah, it was typically in the mash or at the end of the boil. I think one time we did actually like condition it on some pumpkins.
Okay.
So we roasted them to try to, you know, kind of sanitize them a little bit. But that was for like a really limited kind of thing where we had a little bit more control over it. So I'd be iffy to do that, you know, and do like commercialized version of it, just because can't really sanitize the, I mean, I guess if you maybe like boil them or something, you could, but then again, the flavor is probably not going to be super great. It is really tricky, I find, to get pumpkin flavor anyway, because what most people think of pumpkin flavor is like pumpkin pie flavor, which has sugar and spices in it. Yeah. So like most people aren't just chowing down on pumpkins. So I think you need, like, this beer has quite a bit of lactose in it, as well as all the spices and the coffee. So.
Yeah, I tried to explain that to people. So I made like pumpkin chocolate chip cookies one year, and I tried to, you know, I like made it for my friends over here, and I was like, oh, if anyone wants some. And some of my friends were like, oh no, I don't like pumpkin. And I'm like, have you ever had pumpkin? And they were like, no, but I know I don't like it. And I was like, oh,
that's such a British thing. Like, we're just like, no, we don't like pumpkin. I'm like, no, I love it.
Well, I had to say, like, but you do understand the pumpkin is kind of similar to like when you have cauliflower. I know it's not the same, but it's similar in the sense of like you don't get that. The taste can change depending on how you're seasoning it.
Flavors, yeah.
It's like there's no big offensive taste or a big bold taste that you're going to get from pumpkin, and I think that's the mistake some people make, is they think it's a pumpkin beer, and I don't know how pumpkin's going to taste, and I'm not going to like it. But actually, when you have a beer that's just made with pumpkin and isn't actually pumpkin spiced, it's not it's not going to taste how you think it's going to taste. It's the spice that actually is what makes it a pumpkin spiced beer.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have, to toot my own horn, toot toot, I make a really good pumpkin bread. And I've converted several English people to pumpkin with this pumpkin bread, because I'm like, try it. It's kind of like banana bread, but it's got pumpkin in it. And they're like, oh.
It does have a really nice texture. Like when you cook it or bake it with things, it's a good binding agent, I suppose. Yeah.
I do a really good pumpkin Swiss roll as well. That blows people's minds.
That sounds really nice, actually.
You got to have cream cheese and like cream cheese icing in the middle of it.
That does
Good.
sound solid. You also
Good.
do a really good pumpkin double. That pumpkin double.
Yeah,
was-
she liked
was
my
really
pumpkin double.
Yeah, she
That
made a
came out
pumpkin
nice.
double and it was
Yeah.
really, really nice.
That does sound really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the key with pumpkin is it needs to be with other things.
Yeah.
Oh.
Not on its own.
Definitely, absolutely needs to be with other things. But yeah. Joe, do you have anything else? Because I don't
That's it.
think I do. Cool.
No, that's it.
Thank you
Cool.
so much for joining
thank
us.
you.
I feel like I'm really
absolutely.
excited. I was really looking forward to this because I was like, oh my God, I was looking forward to the release and I was looking forward to getting to talk about it. And it's really good. And I think everyone should go out and buy it. So I guess before you plug where people can get it, is there anything exciting that you want people to know about that's coming up for the brewery or anything else?
Yeah, so we're about to release our second barrel aged beer. So that'll be coming out later this month. So it's going to be Sasquatch syrup, so a barrel aged version of that. So we released that back in the spring, and that was like a breakfast stout with maple and coffee. So we did a bourbon barrel aged version of that, which we think's tasting really nice. So that will be coming out soon. And again, we just have, because we're so small, we literally have one barrel. So there's about like 500 something bottles of that. And then once the barrel's empty, then we fill it back up with another beer, which in this case is going to be the pumpkin that'll hopefully be ready sometime this time around next year. So yeah, it's coming out. And then we've got a double New Zealand IPA coming out soon, which we're really excited about. And then we've got a pretty cool Christmas series coming out. So I won't give any details, but if you keep an eye, if you like kind of Christmas fun, no, I won't say gimmicky because it's not gimmicky, but it's a little gimmicky. But
Gimmicky in a good way.
Yeah, gimmicky and
Positive
fun,
gimmick.
like this beer.
Fun.
This beer is a bit gimmicky as well, so it's fun. But I think so we've got a couple of Christmas. We're gonna do like a Christmas trilogy, early December, and that'll be pretty cool, I think.
Nice. We were just saying we need to start working out our Christmas beers together, so that'll have to on the
Before you
Yeah,
came
I
on,
mean-
we were like,
Yeah.
we need to figure out
Yeah.
what we're gonna do for our Christmas
Yeah.
episode. We need to start collecting them.
Yeah,
Well,
so
there you
we
go. I've just given it to you.
We'll just add it to
Yeah.
your list.
We'll just
Yeah,
have the
it's on the
same
list now.
conversation in 2 months. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, anything? Do you want to plug the brewery as plug any socials? Feel free to plug any.
Yeah, I mean,
socials
just
you want.
we do mostly Instagram and Facebook. I think it's S43 Brewery, and then
We'll
the
put it in the show
website's-
notes.
I'll put it in the
Yeah.
show notes. We'll find
I
it.
should probably know what it is. It's S43brewery.com is we still the beer's almost sold out actually. So, but I think we do still have some of the pumpkin beers on the website, or preferably even go to wherever your bottle shop is, and hopefully they'll have it. So.
Yeah, and people are going to want to get on that before I drink the rest of the ones that I got and
Not mine,
go and
though.
buy more. Not yours. Yours is already put to the side. So yeah, definitely go check out the beers. Go check out this pumpkin beer. It might change your mind on what a pumpkin spice beer can be. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was fun.
Right there. So there you have it. I'll use my voice a little bit now because Tori's used hers a lot.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. It's my
Right.
fault because
You're
I didn't give you the
you're
beer.
the real pumpkin enthusiast. So I let you take the lead on that one.
Cheers. I had so many questions. I was like, I get to talk to someone about pumpkin beers. Yeah.
I knew you were excited.
Yeah, it was. And I thought, it was really interesting to learn about some of the stuff that he was talking about, especially like the name and how it went, the struggles that they had with it. It was really quite cool to hear about it because I think, we've said it so many times, I'll say it again, like it's really interesting to hear the labor of love that goes on behind the scenes that you don't necessarily know about just from a consumer point of view. So it's just interesting to hear that. And I really enjoyed it. And I'm sorry, I'll bring you yours soon.
She's the worst.
But
actually,
go on
she's the
record
best.
and say,
Actually, she's the best because she bought me some and then nearly sold out, so it's okay.
yeah, go on record and say how good the old one was though, because
It's
we were just
really
saying
good,
we were just saying off camera that it really didn't.
Yeah,
hold up
so
quite
I've
well.
got last year's one because I ended up with a couple left over. I nearly got rid of it because I was worried that it was gonna explode because there might have been a bit of re-fermentation, but I saved it. And I pro tip, everyone, keep your beers if you can't get them in the fridge, but you should keep them chilled. But if you can't, put them in plastic boxes, so if they explode they just go in the box, not all over your carpet.
We should have given people those tips, like, so they're gonna be like, you are encouraging people to not store them in the fridge.
No, because but let's be honest, if I had fridges enough to keep my entire beer collection in, my house would just be full of fridges. The amount of beer I've got right
You'd
now
live in a cold
needs
store.
must, right? I have got dark cupboards, but anyway, it's still really good. So there's not as much coffee in it now, but the spices are at a really good level. I think you're getting some of the actual pumpkin sweetness through from it, and it's still really delicious, even though I'm trying to see if it's got the date on it. So it says it's best before October 21st 2021, which is like next week.
Nice.
So
you still got it in.
We're still in best before. It's fine.
Yeah, definitely. I'm saving one of these for when I do my annual carving of the pumpkin.
Yes.
Drink a pumpkin beer and carve a pumpkin day. Nice. But yeah, I love the labels. The artwork always gets me.
Yeah.
It's
just mine
really,
looks like a Starbucks cup.
Yeah, mine does as well, and I really like that because I love pumpkin spice latte. Yeah. So I'll take it. Jo, if people want to ask you and tell you their opinion on cinnamon sugar rims, where can people come and give you their controversial opinion? I don't know why you'd
come and talk to me about cinnamon sugar rings. You want to go and hit up Tori about those? You come and talk to me about pumpkin Swiss roll though, and what my recipe is.
Pumpkin baked goods.
If you ask me enough about pumpkin Swiss roll, I might put the recipe up on the blog. There you go.
Jo, how do you make a pumpkin Swiss roll?
You push it downhill.
You're keeping that in. That's amazing.
I'm keeping that in. But if you'd like to come and talk to me about that, you can talk to me, myself, and I at A Woman's Brew. I am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Getting into that Twitter now. Thinking I might schedule it on there a bit more.
I think it's all a conspiracy. Facebook shut down. They want you to go to Twitter for some reason.
What? I think that's a big lie. I don't think I've posted anything on the A Woman's Brew Twitter in ages. I think I'm doing more on the Love Beer Learning one.
Like I'm really big on Twitter. I haven't posted in weeks.
Great. Then I'm like, actually, I don't think I am. I think I am on what is actually my beer school, Love Beer Learning. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and I am starting to post more on Twitter. We're also on TikTok and Pinterest, but I generally hang out on Instagram. Come find me there. Talk to me about pumpkin Swiss rolls and recipes and anything you'd like to see on the blog, which is on my website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk. And we also have an email address, which is lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. We'll pick up emails for the podcast there. Let us know whether you want us to do more about pumpkins or what Christmas beers you want to hear about or any other beer styles you want to know about. Let us know there. We will do you an episode. Tori, where can they talk to you about cinnamon sugar rims?
Well, they can talk to me about cinnamon sugar rims and the controversy and DGM on drumroll Instagram and only on Instagram at adventures_in_hoptimism. And that is about it because you can't get to my blog without going to Instagram. So there you have it. Note. I've got to go because there's a spider crawling up my wall and it's making me wildly uncomfortable. So with that, Joanne, cheers.